I bought a refurbished Spider-Man PS4 Pro from GameStop, and in this video, we're going to take an in-depth look at it and see if they actually refurbished anything. So let's go ahead and open up this box that they sent to me, and we're going to see what exactly is inside. Alright, so here's the box they sent me, and it says pre-owned console on here, and a bunch of crap is sliding around. Probably just the power cord. We've got a pre-owned PS4. It's actually refurbished. I don't know why it says pre-owned on the box. But if you're not familiar, GameStop does actually differentiate used and refurbished. So refurbished means they usually fix something, open it up, and clean it out. Used just means like a customer sold them a working system and they sold it as used, which I think that's the way it should be done. Like props to GameStop on that compared to a lot of the other consoles we've seen from certain places recently. But let's go ahead and see what's inside of here. All right, so I'm hoping they did not use their special magic eraser on the glossy surface of this special edition console. I've got, actually this is a pretty useful guide there. That's very specific, kind of cool to see. We've got, let me just scoot this around right here. We've got a red controller. I'm not sure, well, that thing is real beat up. I think this is actually the correct controller for the Spider-Man PS4 Pro, if I remember correctly. They always leave these stickers all over them. We've got an HDMI cable, just like, this is just such a random HDMI cable that somebody traded in, I guess. Got our power cord, and we actually have a pretty nice braided cable. That's pretty nice. Now let's open this up and see what's in here. Nice to see that there's barely any packaging for the PS4. Now we open it up from the bottom, and that part is not glossy. Now for the big reveal, let's see if they scratched it up. And oh wow! So this is weird. They actually did not use magic eraser on this, but this thing is like mutilated, partly because they kind of just slapped it in here with no bubble wrap or anything. And I want to mention that I do appreciate GameStop sends OEM controllers. I've purchased tons of stuff from GameStop and never gotten a non-OEM controller unless I was like specifically buying a third-party controller. But this one looks pretty nice except for the back part. Not sure why it looks like that. But then here, this console, let me see if I can get it at a good angle so you guys can see. But like you can just kind of see fingerprints and scratches all over this, which I, kind of expected. This thing gets scratches very easily. It is a glossy console. Now, honestly, I think some of these scratches are from the box inside because there was no bubble wrap. And if you look closely, you probably can't see it, but there's a bunch of like cardboard dust remnants, and that's just because it was scraping against the cardboard the entire trip here. Now, here on the back, we see all the ports, and at first glance, all the ports look okay. This thing has clearly been opened up before. There's actually, is that a missing screw? I've never actually opened up a PS4 Pro, so I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a screw right there, but it looks like there should be, and I don't see one. So that's kind of disappointing they lost that screw. But the HDMI port looks good, which a lot of times they open these consoles up to replace the HDMI port because it has a broken HDMI port. But yeah, since it is refurbished, I'm sure they opened it up and did something to the insides. So a couple more things to talk about real quick. First of all, this power plug has some bent pins. Hopefully that fits in the outlet, but that's just kind of odd that it's that bent. Also, I looked it up, and this controller is not the one that came with this console originally. The one that came with the console had white analog sticks, white buttons. This one has black, so kind of unfortunate. Would have been nice to get the white ones, but it's kind of close. At least it's OEM. That is that's better than a lot of companies. Actually, the left trigger doesn't feel the best. We'll test it out soon. But let's go ahead and plug this thing in and see if it works. All right, plugged in. Let's go ahead and turn it on. We do have life. It's got a blue light. Any mystery games? Nope, no mystery games. So the console is booted up and set up now. I do really appreciate how the PlayStation consoles can boot up and get set up very quickly compared to the Xbox consoles that take like an hour. It just makes you update and all that crap. Which, speaking of update, I'm curious what firmware version this is on, so let's check. All right, so this is on 9.60, which is actually not super recent. I'll throw up the date on the screen when it's from, but we're on 10 point something now, so this is not super recent. Probably been sitting in their warehouse for a while. But let's go ahead and put a game in and make sure our game works. Now we're playing around some, and all the buttons seem to work. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and I'm noticing this even more. The left L2 trigger is just like, it doesn't have the tension there. Like, it seems like the spring, I don't know what happened to it, but it's just, I don't know if you can tell, but it's just, yeah, it doesn't spring back as it should, and it's just kind of limp compared to the R2 that's actually swinging back. Not having issues with it. It just doesn't feel quite as it should. So a couple more things. I did connect to the internet and logged into my PlayStation account, and it does indeed work. So fortunately, this console's not banned, unlike one of the other consoles I purchased recently. I'll throw a link on the screen if you want to check that out. But the other thing that's kind of concerning, this goes back to the left trigger. This thing, like, you can press it so lightly and it'll trigger. Like, just if you look at the screen here, I'm scrolling through some games, and when I play, I just leave my fingers resting on the triggers. And like with even a tiny bit of pressure, it triggers the left trigger, which is why it's coming up with this genre thing. Like you can see, I'm barely touching it and just resting your fingers there, it triggers it. So that's actually a bit disappointing. Now, if you rest your fingers somewhere else, it's probably not a big deal, but I rest my fingers on the triggers, so that would kind of be a deal breaker for me to actually play with this controller. But anyways, the console, other than that, seems to work fine. Let's go ahead and turn it off and open it up and see what the inside looks like, because I actually, just like all GameStop consoles, I don't know why it's always with GameStop consoles, but I went and smelled it, and sure enough, it smells like it's been in a home where somebody was either smoking cigarettes or smoking a Juul, or I don't know anything about that stuff.
How do you do, fellow kids?
But I know what it smells like. It's not too bad, but let's turn this thing off, open it up, and see what the inside looks like. So the first thing we're going to do here is take the top cover off, and the first thing I noticed, just by looking at it, it looks like somebody has pried up on it before and made some indentations, which are not really huge. You probably can't see them on camera, but just slightly noticeable. Now let's just go ahead and pry this up and get the top cover off. All right, we got this top piece pried up most of the way, and let's take a look at this. Oh, this actually looks very clean. I see like a tiny bit of dust there, but that does look like they opened it up and cleaned it out somewhat. Or blew it out. All right, so closer look at the fan, and this thing clearly has been cleaned out. I don't know if they use compressed air or if they use some sort of wipes or what, but everything in here actually does look really nice and clean. Now let's go ahead and get down to the next layer, and I will say that indeed it does smell like smoke, cigarette smoke, Juul pod smoke, something like that. I don't know why so many of these used consoles come like that. So actually, before we go further on this end, I took off this little shielding right here. Looks fine, but I took out the hard drive as well, which is on the back. No issues there. Looks okay. Now we're gonna actually go down. Actually, I just noticed covered in a nice layer of dust. Again, probably hard to see, but oh yeah, you can see that layer of dust there. So that was not open and cleaned out. Now we're gonna go actually flip to the bottom of this console and take off the bottom piece here, which kind of snaps out of place similarly to the top portion. So let's go ahead and take that off. It always sounds like it's going to break here, but I don't think it's going to. It's just all these clips in place. All right, so it slides off, and let's take a look at this, and that's got some dust, but nothing too crazy. The red also kind of helps hide it. Oh, actually, there is a good bit of dust right there. Oh yeah, so I don't think they opened up the bottom and cleaned it out. Maybe they did. I don't know. It doesn't look too terrible, but there's definitely a little bit of filth down there. So after taking out about 1,500 screws, we're finally down to having this metal piece free. Let's go ahead and take it off and see what it looks like under here. And yeah, it looks pretty good. I mean, there's some slight dust here and there. And I will say that the further down I get to the board, the more it smells like cigarettes or Juul pod. I don't know the exact term, but it just does not smell good. Yeah, but let's go ahead and take off this clamp right here. And of course, we're gonna see if some thermal paste was replaced or not, and we're gonna go all the way down as far as we can and see what was done here. All right, so we got this back clamp piece off. Just gonna put that to the side, and yeah, I mean the board itself looks pretty good. I don't see any clumps of dirt or anything. There's like a slight layer of dust in some areas, but again, nothing too crazy. All right, so before I took the board all the way out, I had to go back and take the power supply out. There's some dust in the power supply. Again, nothing too crazy. Everything's just exposed there. Let's go ahead and put that to the side, flip it back over, and now we should be able to remove the entire board now and see what the thermal paste looks like. So let's go ahead and pull this out. There it goes. All right, it is loose, and there's the thermal paste. Wow, that looks really goopy. Clearly does not look, that's actually not nearly as bad as obviously like a 360 or a PS3. Now I don't know if that's been repasted because honestly this is my first time opening a Spider-Man PS4 Pro, so I don't know if that's what the thermal paste looks like originally. I'll look up some photos and then try to determine that, but I will say that this I don't know if they came all the way down to this board, because this board is very dusty. Camera doesn't do it justice. I'll try to put it in the light, but like when I wipe my finger along it, just tons of dust. Again, it's not caked, so it's probably not a big deal, but this is probably why this smells a little odd. And it actually smells a little bit fruity now. So yeah, it's almost like a Juul pod or some sort of combination of Juul pod and cigarette smoke. I almost wonder if the guy that's repairing these at GameStop smokes and he's like smoking around the consoles and getting the consoles to smell like cigarette smoke. I don't know, because it's happening to a lot of consoles. Yeah, again, doesn't look too bad. Let's go ahead and go all the way down so I can see the heatsink here. I guess I should look closer at the board. I can look at this HDMI port right here and probably tell if they replaced that. And oh yeah, maybe that was it. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Let me zoom in here. All right, so we're zoomed in all the way here, and we have our HDMI port at the end of the board. And usually when I open these consoles up, a lot of times GameStop has replaced an HDMI port. Now that looks like it's never been replaced because the solder pads look factory just from me looking at it. Now, if I come over here to the digital out port, this one has some dried up flux around it, which seems like that would be odd if it came from factory like that. So my thought is that maybe they replaced the digital out port. Now I'm not sure who actually uses this port. Let me know down below if you do, but that's my first guess, is they replaced that port because it was broken or something. But I mean, looking at those 3 solder pads right there, those kind of look factory-ish. So again, I'm not sure. I'm just making guesses here because, like I said, when GameStop opens up these consoles and calls them refurbished, that usually means they fixed something. All right, metal plate is off, and from this side it looks okay, but then we get down to this side. Oh yeah, so like it doesn't look too terrible on camera, but there is definitely some dust caked around the heatsink there, and the entire thing just has like a pretty thick layer of dust on each little fin there. Again, kind of hard to see on camera, but it is there. They definitely did not open up or not get down this far to the console and clean this out, because if they had blown this out, you wouldn't have this much dust on here, because I've played this console for like 10 minutes. And we see even more evidence of that as we get further down, because you can see that pretty thick layer of dust around those cracks there. The fan does have some dust on here that I can just wipe off with my fingers. I don't even know if I call it dust. It's more like cigarette dirt, dust. I don't know what to call it. But again, this is not nearly as bad as like that DK Oldies PS3, but it's just interesting to open these things up and seeing what they've actually done to them. And I'm still not sure what they fixed or refurbished. Maybe they took the disk drive out and that was not working. So I got the whole disk drive out and just taking a peek in here. I mean, it looks pretty clean in there. I don't see anything obvious that was like replaced or done. Same with the top piece here. It is kind of dusty on the side. So yeah, I have no idea what they fixed here. I'm like 99% sure they fixed something, because that's just what GameStop does when they say refurbished. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.